Hey friends, so excited to get into this week's episode with all of you. But really quick, have you ever had a friendship breakup? Unfortunately, both Day and I have, and it's the heartbreak that we as adult women often don't talk about. The journey to healing after the end of the friendship can be tough, but we don't have to figure it out alone. Introducing the Creative Healing Series, Volume Number 1, a transformative virtual screening of the documentary Best Friends, Not Forever. Join Shalise Nelson, a licensed professional counselor, with Diamond Williamson, the director of the documentary, for an empowering experience to support you in finding solace and healing through creative expression. With the exclusive Let's Grow tickets, you'll gain access to the event along with an exclusive DJ mix and the Best Friends Not Forever workbook, a guide to building sustainable friendships, as both are intended to take you on an immersive journey of the film. Plus, you'll receive a thoughtfully curated package containing a creative expression toolkit and self-care essentials shipped directly to your door. Take the first steps towards healing and rediscovering yourself. Use our Honestly Friends podcast code HF20 to receive up to 20% off your ticket when visiting www.theconsciousqueen.com or search for Best Friends Not Forever on Eventbrite to secure your spot today. A link to the virtual event can also be found in this week's show notes.
Hey, friends. Love that for us. Welcome to the Honestly Friends podcast, where we talk about life, love, friendships, and the culture. What up, Lee?
Nothing much. Happy Saturday. We're
Happy
midway through the
Saturday.
summer.
I know.
It's not raining.
Not
it's
right
really pretty
now.
outside.
It's been hot.
It has been hot.
It has been crazy. It's been a little hot.
My aunt, she came to visit this weekend and she's like, it feels like Beelzebub is giving birth outside. I said, you're not lying.
Oh my goodness. Listen,
like, it is. We got to get inside the house. Come on.
It's a different type of hot. Okay? It's a different type of hot. My goodness. But today, this week's episode, I like it because I've struggled in this area. Setting healthy boundaries with family, friends, significant others, maybe even ourselves sometimes. It's been a struggle, and I wanted us to get into that a bit.
Okay. Struggling about what? What you struggling with? Or us, all of us in a whole.
I think we all struggle with boundaries, especially when it comes to like people that we care about, right? Because there's always that kind of struggle, at least for me, where I'm like, I want to say no, and you know I love my no. I want to say no, but this is my family member. This is a really close friend. This is my boo. Like, when should I do the give and take, and when should I stay firm in my boundaries and just be like, it is what it is, right? Like, it's one of those things. I don't think people like talking about having boundaries, but it's one of those things that, like, it's real, and it gets realer the older I get. Like, I had an ex-friend tell me once, actually, that I didn't have boundaries. Now,
I was gonna ask you, I was like, are you the offender or the offendee? Like, but I guess
a little bit of both. It depends. I think it could depend on who you're dealing with, right? Like, there are times when it's like, I'm sure I cross boundaries that I may not even know that are in place. And then there are times when people cross my boundaries that they didn't know was in place, or we push each other's envelope just a bit. But I did have a friend, like, the first time I even really thought of boundaries as like a concept, as a thing, I had a former friend tell me like, oh, you don't have healthy boundaries. Like, we had a falling out and everything. And she was right. I did not have as good boundaries surrounding us, a specific thing, which I won't get into too much, but I didn't have healthy boundaries surrounding that. However, I will say the caveat to that was my lack of boundaries had benefited her. So it's one of those things where it's like, you can't always, like, you can't call it out when it's not to your benefit, right? Like, But I did take into consideration the fact that she said that. And I'm like, you know what? I do need to visit the conversation of boundaries and what are my boundaries and what are things that I'm okay with and I'm not okay with, and being receptive to understanding and hearing when other people tell me like, hey, I don't like this. I would prefer that in this friendship, in this relationship, this is how we operate. So
Yeah.
it's
As
one
far
of those
as
tough ones. Go ahead.
Yeah, as far as me, I'm sure I'm both as well, but I can only think about the time where I felt like I was offended because someone didn't was crossing my boundaries. And I think when you think about our last episode where we talked about friendship breakups, you go through the breakup, right? And then you think about what happened to do it, and you come to the conclusion somebody crossed a boundary somewhere. But my
Mm-hmm.
thing is, like, when do we learn boundaries? I think boundary learning is initially something you learn like retroactively. You don't learn it proactively. It's not, I don't remember anybody in school.
No.
I don't remember anybody at the house. Somehow this is a boundary. At least outspoken. Like, I guess when you're being weird, there are certain things like do this, do that, but it's not
Not weird.
necessarily because it's always not always necessarily explained to you. And then you also grow by observing
Mm-hmm.
where your boundaries, like societal norms, are boundaries. You
Mm-hmm.
just observe, nobody's doing this, so I'm not going to do this either. But yeah,
Right.
I
And
go ahead.
I think to your question, when do we learn boundaries? We learn them every day, and we learn them like as we're growing. Like all of
Mm-hmm.
those like when your parents or family members or a teacher or whomever, like someone, typically we feel like we learn them from someone older too. Like when they say, oh,
Mm-hmm.
you don't do that, or this is why we don't do this, and this is why you can do that. Those are boundaries, but we don't conceptualize it as that. Like I didn't start to think of the word boundary and what that meant until like my 30s, which I'm currently in.
Mm-hmm.
Like prior
Mm-hmm.
to that, it was just like you said, it's societal norms. It's just like, oh, we just don't do this sort of thing. And we all
Mm-hmm.
do that sort of thing. But it's like I've never thought about it in the sense of like, oh, it's because it's a boundary. It's just what we did.
Exactly. Mm-hmm. Because of the two friendship breakups that I talked about last episode, I can explain a little bit more. So one of them I found was that I found myself overwhelmed by my friend in the sense that she felt like she could talk to me a lot. And that's a wonderful thing. But our relationship became her just talking to me about her problems, her problems, her problems, her problems. And I started to notice, I'm like, you're not asking me ever about my problems. And I resented that a little bit. And I was like, so I kind of just fell back. I'm like, I do like it would be to the point where I see her on the phone and I know she's gonna tell me like, I can't believe this happened, blah, 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 versus, hey girl, how you doing? What you doing? So that for me, I was like, I don't know, like I don't mind being a sounding board, but it's just like she did not realize that it was her always downing on me, and I didn't even think to put my issues on her because
Mm-hmm.
that's just like not something I really do. I kind of
Mm-hmm.
internalize things, and it could have been me though. I'm like, well, she doesn't know you to be a sharer, so she's not going to ask you to share. That's true too.
That's
So
true.
versus with last episode when I was like, I am amenable to rekindling the friendship because I was holding something against them and they didn't know. Like, you can't hold somebody against something if they don't know what the problem is. And then
Mm-hmm.
the other situation, kind of the same thing, but she just didn't have boundaries. And like, once I kind of told her what was going on, she still kept doing it. And I was like,
Mm-hmm.
okay. So yeah, it's true.
And
I
I can say I feel like I can somewhat relate to the first friend that you mentioned. Like I
mm-hmm.
love to be in people business. Like you always say, I love minding my business. I love being in other people business. I don't like
Mm-hmm.
people being in my business though. Like don't do that.
Mm-hmm.
But I've I tend to like absorb like a lot of people's things. I like to be helpful. So let's just start there. Like I'm not always just
Mm-hmm.
in your business to know the tea and chit chat and laugh about it or whatever. I do like to be helpful. I like, my friends have always said that like I'm a good soundboard. Like, you all kind of come to me in different ways to be like, this is what's going on with me. What do you think? Because I tend to be very neutral and see both sides. But in doing that, like, I tend to want, like, I tend to be a little bit absorbed in what other people are got going on in their life. And one of the boundaries that I've had to like set in place, and now everybody be mad, but I'm just like, that's your business, that's not mine, is I keep my phone on do not disturb. And you know that. Like, almost all day, like, I'll keep my phone on do not disturb. Like, I have like my parents, my brothers, and like a couple other people who can bypass the do not disturb list, because I always figure like just in case it's an emergency. But for everyone else, I'm like, I'm not your emergency contact. So we're on do not disturb. If there is an emergency, you can then call me. You know, if you call me twice within like 2 to 3 minutes, it goes back through, I got you. But I tend to like be the type of person, because I get so absorbed like with other people, and because I like to be helpful or whatever. If you call me and I'm in the middle of something, a normal person might just be like, "Oh, I'll answer that call later. I'll call back in a later on," or answer real quick and be like, "Oh, hey, what's going on?" Okay, decide it's not that important and let it go. Me, I will kind of drop what I'm doing to have that conversation. And so I found that like I wasn't always showing up for myself as much as I was showing up for other people and being readily available for other people. Which is not the fault of anybody else. Like, that was just something I needed to do to start to refocus on myself. So like, one way I kind of established that boundary is just by keeping my phone on do not disturb, so that if I am busy, I'm just going to see that call at a later time and then reach out when I'm not busy.
I was going to say, but that must mean you have a good follow-up procedure.
I have an excellent follow-up procedure. Okay. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, like, because I don't think it hardly ever is a time where like someone reaches out and I don't follow up within 24 hours. Like, usually it's within hours, but it gives me a time to like, okay, if I look at my phone, like, oh, Lee called me, I'm still doing this, I'll call Lee back. Like, and you know that, like, I typically call you back within hours. So
yeah, no, you do. Like last week we were on the phone and something happened. Your phone was all messed up, like the signal. And then in the process, someone was calling. He's like, oh, someone's calling me. He's like, I gotta go. And I was like, oh, okay. Yeah. But you just say he's gonna call me back. And then you called me back like a few hours later.
Yeah.
Like, oh, okay.
Yeah, like,
I honestly didn't know if you was gonna call me back though. I was like,
no, and I don't know if you were just like, it was so abrupt.
I can't do none of this.
No, very it was frazzled. Like, yeah, I couldn't see what was going on my phone. I'm like, who's calling me? And even then you can see like how I'll prioritize. What was I about to say? Prioritize. I'm just like, someone's calling me. Like, let me see who it is. Like, I'm quick to kind of drop things for other people. So it's like that do not disturb comes in so handy for me, because I'm like, it don't matter what I'm doing. If it's cleaning, if it's reading a book, if it's just sitting here watching TV, like, I should honor what I want to do, because 9 times out of 10, it's not an emergency. It's just a conversation. And if it is an emergency, you're probably going to call me back a second time. And then I'll be like, whoa, what's going on?
Yeah. I honestly don't know how to use do not disturb. It only happens when I think sometimes a button goes down, because I'll see that my phone every once in a while is on do not disturb. I'm like, how I did not put that on there. And I'm new to iPhone. So I'm like, is there a way, does this thing just automatically, what is going on? So, and that just reflects how I am. I'll just pick up the phone and I'm ready for if someone got to talk to me. Because for me, I don't take on people's stuff like you do.
I do.
I really don't. Do. Like, I am.
I'm like, how do I work this out?
No, I am, I guess, a good listener, and I'm a positive person. So I usually leave people with like looking at the positive side. I'll have like a positive, what can we do list, maybe. Yeah. But yeah, I do not put people's stuff on me.
No, I be stressed out. I be out here stressed. I be more stressed than the person situation, because then I'm like, oh my God. They're like, okay, I mean, I will address it next week. And I'm just sitting there the whole week like, let's follow up. What was said? What was addressed? How did we do this? And I'm just like, I can't, like, I have to pull that back. I have to pull that back. And I would even say with like my friendship breakup that happened, that was one part of it. It's just like I'm sometimes too overly involved with other people. So the boundary I had to set for myself is just to pull myself back sometimes from people.
And I imagine if that's how you experience things, the breakup has got to feel like a part of you is missing because you were so involved.
1000%. 1000%.
And that has got to suck. Like with my friendship breakups, I didn't feel like that. But I did feel sad. Like, well, later on, not sad in the beginning, because I was just like, oh, look, I feel like a weight is lifted off of me. Honestly, like it's different. I feel like a weight is lifted off of me, and I was like 150%, and now I'm 100. You seem like you are like without that friend for the moment, since you've taken on their stuff. It's like you were 100, now you're like 75, and you got to realize how to become whole again.
Yeah,
so that's interesting how it can be different.
It definitely was like that for me, because I feel like, granted, I'm always like, oh, I have a lot more friends than I think about. But when I do have my like my friendships or my personal like relationships with people, like I'm there. Like I'm loyal. Like I don't think I have any single friend that can be like, I reached out to this girl and needed help or needed something and she didn't pull up and come through. Like,
yeah,
I'm super like, you need help, I'm there. So yeah, it was definitely super hard, like to go through a friendship breakup, and just kind of feeling like my life had been kind of enmeshed with this person. And it's like, and you were my friend throughout that time too. So it's like I had my different enmeshment with you, but my life had been enmeshed with like, and it was a couple people with these people. And it's like, how do I navigate? How do I maneuver now? Like, this is different because for a very long time, like I would call this person for this or talk to them about that. And we had these jokes or these things that was going on. So
yeah,
like literally it was really a blessing for her to tell me that I had no boundaries, because I had to like sit there and be like, you know what, you're probably right, let me establish something. But with that, it affects not just me and how I operate, but how I operate with other people. But I feel better for it now.
Yeah. So like we discovered this, you discovered this in your 30s, your friendship breakups. My friendship breakups was in my 20s or whatnot. But for the friends that are listening, and maybe you're not at that point where you've had a friendship breakup, I think we can conclude and kind of offer a suggestion that subtly or in a minute way, set a boundary before you can. If you can see that sometimes you get aggravated with your friend, but you're the only one aggravated because the other person doesn't know, you got to find a way to let them know about like what's going on with you. Like, so in my situation, I'd have been like, oh, so, and this is, I have done what I'm about to say recently. I'm like, so yeah, this is what I'm doing. Like in a way to say, we're not talking about you the whole conversation. And I'm going to bombard this conversation and take over it. And we're going to talk about me. I'm going to force it. That is aggressive, but it not really, because I'm not being super aggressive, but I shift the conversation.
Oh yeah, and you said they're your friend recently. You said I was just like, okay. I don't remember what it was. It was something regarding the podcast. It might have been like a post or something. And I was like, oh, we need to do X, Y, Z. And you were like, you can do it. And I was like, I can. I will. Don't worry about it. Because I'm sure you were
that's
like,
what it is.
Yeah, I'm sure you were like, don't be adding other stuff to me. Like if we can do this, you go ahead and do it. I was like,
that's my
no
style.
problem.
That's what it is. That's
no
my
problem.
Style. Yeah, but exactly. So you could be the judge, because I'm like, I don't feel like it's aggressive, but it's to the point and concise.
It is to the point. I was like, yeah, okay. But then I think I recently said something similar too, because you were like, we should do a thing for the podcast. And I was like, you could do that. I'm not going to be available. This was like last week. One of our friends have a major situation going on with her. So, and you were like, oh yeah, I didn't think about that. And I was like, you can set up that meeting, but I'm not going to be there. I'm not going to be there. Like I had something to do after. So, but I mean, so we do that. We both do that, I guess, like with each other. And I don't know, when you did it with me, I didn't take it no type of way. I'm like, technically, like you're spearheading right now because you ain't got no job. Tommy, you ain't got no job.
I ain't got no job, Tommy.
So she's posting like a lot on our social media. So I think I mentioned something about like a post, and you were like, "You can do it," and I'm like, "You're right," because I'm not contributing, and I cannot be mad at you for being like, "No, don't put more on me when I'm doing like all of that." I understood it.
Yeah, and that helps me segue into thinking like, in those two situations, we are allowing each other to be honest. And so for people who don't have the practice of that, but are thinking that they want to be able to tell their friends their boundary and they may be a little nervous or whatnot, because it could be nerve-wracking. Once you do it, you're going to find out if you can have a sense of honesty with your friends. Hence, Honestly Friends podcast. But that, it's hard to have boundaries in any relationship if there is no room for you to express how you honestly feel. And a lot of people are in relationships like that, platonically, familial, and romantic.
Yeah.
Because I have some familial relationships where I can't be honest. So I just shut up because I can't. I know it's just not possible. And then I don't want to deal with the wrath of that. A lot of familial relationships are like that. Romantic relationships are like that.
And you know what? For whatever reason, I'm flipped in that, because I don't think I've ever really had any real problems establishing boundaries with family. Like, I think I talked about it on a previous like episode.
You are blessed and highly favored, because I think a lot of people.
I know, but it's just because I think I don't know, they just know me, like, especially in my family, my nuclear family, like my mom, my dad, my brothers. Like early on, one of my things that I established, my boundaries that I established, is like, I don't like people just taking my stuff and touching my stuff. So like, I used to just be like, that's my food in the fridge. Do not touch my food. Like, it's gonna be World War III up in here if you take my stuff. And like, my dad and my brother are like Jamaican guys, Jamaican men. Like, they just eat everything, like vacuums. So, and they're big guys, like they're over 6 feet. My dad's side is just like really tall. So I'm, as small as I am, I'm like, don't play with me, because I will cut you. Like, do not play with me. Like, and so I've always kind of established like boundaries. Like, I mean, sometimes it took longer times depending on what was happening, because some things are deeper. But ultimately, I've always just been like, I have to honor myself and how I feel, because sometimes, like for me at least, when I feel like I'm going against what I really want to do or what I really want to say, I have a huge internal struggle where I just feel unsettled.
Same.
And so I didn't know if that was universal or if it's just me, but I be feeling so unsettled, and I'm just like, I have to say something. I have to say this.
I never know. My internal struggle is I never know if I should say it. If like saying, take that back. I know I should say it, but I'm like, I'm tired of saying stuff.
Yeah.
Like, I just feel like, why we got to talk about everything? Like everything. I just get tired of talking. So that's my internal struggle, because I'm like, I know I need to speak up, but I don't feel like it. And I feel like people know me as a person that speaks up. Like I say how I feel.
As someone that speaks up. And so that's what I was saying. Like, I feel like it's flipped. Like in personal conversations that I've had with you, which are, what's going on with you. I'm just always surprised. Like, I'm just like, not the Elise Lee I know, not Lee. I'm sorry for saying your last name. Not the Lee I know.
It's okay. It's a beautiful name.
It is a beautiful name.
Yeah,
not
thank
the
you.
Lee I know. Like, I've always known you to just be like, yeah, no, this is what I'm doing. I don't care if you like take it or leave it. This is who I am. So when you're like talking to me about certain things, I'm just like, okay, you want help? Let's figure this out. Like, let's try to figure this out. But it's just, I'm just like, oh, I can't believe she's coming to me for this, because I just view you as such a strong, like, independent person, an independent thinker, and this person that's just like, this is how I want my life to be. But it just shows that we're all human, no matter how amazing we are, which you are, no matter how strong we are, which you are. Like, we're all human, and there's different things in our world that rocks it, So
yeah, and I mean, it's just the people I'm close to. I have no problem being vulnerable, but the world is not going to see that. And I'm like, okay, what's up? What we doing? We're not doing this. We're not doing that. All right, y'all have a good day. I'll see you tomorrow. Because I don't have time. But with people who got my heart, I'm very vulnerable.
Mm-hmm.
Like, yeah, because that's the cancer in me. I'm just like mushy gushy.
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, yeah, but yeah. Now, speaking of like, because we have friendships and we just talked a little about family, like even like something that I've seen come up a lot is that damn restaurant bill. And who gonna pay the restaurant bill?
I'm like, what restaurant bill? Yeah, that $4,000 bill for the birthday.
Yes, we've talked about it before, just in outings with like our friend group, my other friend. Like it's just, and everybody has different opinions. But I'm like, you know what? This is a boundary.
It is a boundary.
Don't nobody be talking about this. Like that is such a boundary passing thing. And
if no one knows what we're talking about, it's like these guys were filming. They were at some restaurant. I don't know what it was. They were out for this girl's birthday dinner, and I don't know how it all came about because, to be honest, I haven't watched a full video clip. But their bill ended up being like thousands of dollars, and apparently, like people were ordering. I don't know what the heck they were ordering, like things that were thousands of dollars worth of food. And I think, was it the girls that wanted the guys to pay for the meal? Was it something like that? Or like, what was the split? What was the
bill
problem?
was like $4,700 and they wanted everybody to split it. And there were a lot of people at the table. So let's say, I don't think it was 10. It was between 7 and 10 people. 10 That's is generous. But if it was 10 people, it would have been $460. And if it was 7, it would have been more. And the argument is, some people are like, let's split it. And some people are like, I just had an appetizer and I didn't drink. I think what happened is they ordered some bottles. So like imagine in Miami, it's like $800 to $1,000 or whatnot. And I was like, I didn't drink from that bottle. And I'm not even a drinker like that. That would have been my argument.
Right.
And so you got to know your friends. I'm literally
not a drinker like that. I half the time don't even get a drink. So I'm not going.
You have to know your. You have to know your friends, and y'all would have had to set boundaries with each other beforehand to know that this is not going to fly with this particular friend group. You got to know your friends too, because some friends have different boundaries. Some people are willing to, no matter what, but some are not, because you haven't practiced boundary setting in your friendships. Because I'm like, why does this have to be an argument? There are going to be some people. For me, it depends on the friend group and their dynamics. Some of them were like, okay, that's fine. And those people tend to have a little bit more money on average. So it's like, okay, we'll split it. But not everybody. I don't care how old you are. People are struggling at all ages.
Everybody has different things they got going on, no matter what.
So, you expect people... No, ma'am.
Because we've like had that conversation. Because like you mentioned, like this one is a more recent one, but it comes up about every month,
every year,
like somebody,
or two.
Yeah, like someone's always having some type of thing, and I've told you, I'm like, I don't mind splitting the bill like down the middle if everyone has essentially gotten somewhat of the same thing. Like our meal is within dollars of each other, like $10. I would even go as far as like $20, depending on where we're at or whatever. Like, it's very close. So it's just like, okay, now it's dollars. Cool. But if I get something like, if I get a Caesar salad and a water and my meal is like $15 and you get like a steak and like a couple drinks and yours is $150, I am not splitting that with you. I'm paying for mine and you pay for yours.
I'm paying for mine. Exactly. But imagine if you and I were out, it's just us two, and I ordered a whole bunch of food and you ordered your grilled chicken sandwich and some water, grilled chicken salad and some water. And I was like, all right, Dave, we finna split it. I'm crossing a boundary and you're gonna
with
get a
two-piece. We're gonna fight in a restaurant.
As in Popeyes, you gonna buy me some chicken?
No.
Or you trying to fight?
Okay. You about to get that hands. Because I feel like you're disrespecting me. I feel like you're trying me.
Yeah, I want to fight.
I don't like to be tried. I don't like being tried.
Exactly. But if I was like, oh no, we're gonna split it down the middle, I know you'd be like, well, we have the relationship where I'm like, no, I'm not. But
Right.
that would be me
Yeah.
crossing a boundary with you. That's a boundary. Like that's not
Right.
even fair. That's not even at all equitable. Because you know me, I do like
Right.
to eat. I do have that reputation, according to you. Like I be ordering
You
this,
get
this,
like,
this, this, and that.
y'all, Elise will literally, she'll be like, the waiter comes over. What do you want? I'll have the, I don't know, what's something that you'll have? I'll have the
I have
calamari. Let's
bread
say.
rolls,
No, but
calamari.
that's normally free. I'll have the
Mm,
calamari. And can I have like a Caesar salad with salmon? And I'm like,
mm-hmm.
okay. And then she's like, and then for my entree, for your what now? Wait,
Yeah,
you just
and then
had
I'll
an
have another
appetizer
entree.
and a salad with salmon. Like it's not even just like the lettuce alone. Then you're gonna
Yeah,
get like a steak, and then the other entree is like a
and
steak
then
and
I
fries.
want some pot stickers. Yes,
Like,
the Jack
and then
Daniels ones.
there's
Everything.
me that I'm just like, yeah, I might just get the salad with the salmon and that's it. Like maybe an
Yeah.
appetizer. So it's like, yeah, when we're going, if she's eating like that, like multiple things, I'm just like, yep, this is a separate check. Now, if it's
Mm-hmm.
like comparable, like you get like one entree and one appetizer, and we typically will share appetizer or whatever, it's like, okay, cool. Like we can
Mm-hmm.
split that bill. So
Yeah.
yeah, but we both also know like if I ever try it or you ever try it, like that's just gonna be like, yeah, we're not doing that. Like, and we don't have any hard feelings. It's like, yeah, I tried and that I was unsuccessful. I'm paying for my own
Mm-hmm.
bill.
But
So
then
it's
it became
crazy
this
when
whole
people.
debate because the original video was a TikTok, but then it became this whole debate. And, some people were on their respective sides. But in my head, I was like, this could have all been avoided if they had talked about this before. And I'm
It's
sure
true.
this is not the first time that these
Mm-hmm.
friends have eaten together or some of them have eaten together. And someone, whoever the birthday boy or girl was, like, no, let's not do that because I know person A, B, and C, they're not down with that.
Mm-hmm.
So if you have boundaries and your friend knows your boundaries, either they'll just automatically remember your boundaries and act accordingly, or they can speak on your behalf to someone who doesn't know you as much and be like,
Right.
nah, that's not gonna work. Like,
Right.
we're not
Right.
doing that. We're not doing that. Like, so yeah, boundaries are really important in all types of relationships, especially friendships. But unfortunately, I feel like they don't get talked about until
Something's
after some
happened.
damage has happened.
And
Mm-hmm.
because I think sometimes too, to be fair, I think sometimes we don't even recognize, like I mentioned, like sometimes you don't know it's a boundary until something's been crossed. And then you're like, I don't like that. So to be fair, I think sometimes that's what it is. Like
Mm-hmm.
you just didn't even, because you didn't think this would happen or you never thought of the scope of this
Yeah.
happening. So that's fine. But I think the biggest part of that is actually learning how to communicate. Like always drive communication. If someone crosses your boundary, you communicate that with them, to just
Yeah,
say,
because it's
hey,
not
this
like
happened and I didn't really like it.
mm-hmm. Yeah, because it's not like in a friendship when, like, let's say me and you and I meet. It's not like, okay, we're gonna be friends, and these are my boundaries. These are my, what do you
Exactly.
call them? Deal breakers. Yeah, you might do that in a romantic relationship, but even in a romantic relationship, you're just like all bright and sunny eyed, and you just think about the good things. A lot of
Yeah,
those
rose
deal
colored
breakers don't
glasses. Yeah.
come into effect until time and space. But I do think romantic ones speak about it more. But
Mm-hmm.
again, friendships always get the
Crappy end of the stick.
crappy end of the
Yeah.
stick. It's just like we don't
It's true.
invest in them. It's funny how we'll invest in boundaries in our romantic relationships. Like, these are the things that I cannot deal with. If these happen, these are the consequences. But we
Mm-hmm.
don't do that in friendships. So
And
that's
a
why I'm
lot of
glad we're
times,
talking about it this episode, because it'll help our friends and even us like realize, gotta find a way to stick that in there real quick, like
mm-hmm. And I think a
boundary.
lot of times too in friendships, like that communication factor is really, really key because if you're not mature enough or you're not dealing
Mm-hmm.
with two or more mature parties in a situation, when you do communicate the boundary, if someone actually does say it, like
Mm-hmm.
it may not always be received well because someone else is just like, I don't like people talking to me like that. Like, no, like you have to. be able to be receptive to understand that someone is saying something to you that they don't like. And if you actually value the friendship, the relationship, that you have to kind of sit in that. Maybe it won't work for you because you have a different value set. Like sometimes just because someone has a boundary, that doesn't necessarily mean that you're doing something wrong. You're just doing something wrong for them. It may not be a universal code. So okay, cool. You may be able to assess it and be like, okay, if this is how you operate and how you move, then I can't be your friend. Because let's say, for instance, like my boundary was I don't let people borrow things. Like you mentioned to me before, like you asked me before to like borrow like a purse, and I did, and I let you borrow it or whatever. And I'm like, I struggle with that because I'm like, I didn't really grow up with sisters or like cousins or anyone. Like I've never had to share because I only had a brother. So, and I'm really possessive with my things. So like you and I spoke about it and I was like, yeah, you can have my stuff. That's fine. But you were like, I didn't peg you for someone that wouldn't be okay with like letting someone borrow their things. Like you don't come off that way or whatever. And I'm just like, your assessment of me was not inaccurate. But like for you, you're just like, yeah, if somebody wants to borrow, that's fine. And for me, I'm just like, oh wait, like I'm actually having a struggle. Like, did I eventually do it or do I eventually do it? Yeah, but it was just a different thing for me because it had never been asked of me before, to be honest. So I'm just like, oh,
fair.
Okay, sure. Sure, you can borrow. Like, not this coming up when I'm in my 30s. Like, because I never had to do it before. So
yeah,
and
friends,
all it takes
just
is communication.
Slip that boundary in there real quick. And then if your friend has a really awkward or exaggerated reaction, you need to know that too. Because then maybe we need to evaluate our friendship or how close we're going to be. Because me setting a boundary with you should not incite wrath. And if it does, again, we need to evaluate this. So yeah, that's pretty much it. Thanks for bringing that up. I think that was a good thing to consider, especially considering our last episode. Before you get to that breakup, try to set some boundaries. Because nobody knows
them. Don't just set them.
If you're mad. Exactly. Nobody knows you're mad at them if you don't tell them. And nobody knows your boundaries if you don't explain it to them. Exactly.
They don't know your triggers either because like I mentioned, like sometimes the boundary you have may not be something that's universal, but it may be more personal to you because it's just how you were raised or something you went through. And it's just like, no, this is just how I operate. And I need people to understand that. Like you have to tell them so that they can understand that.
And I will say, I think a lot of boundaries are figured out when you just spend time with each other as friends, but they're not the only boundaries. And that's not enough a lot of the times. So you do figure out boundaries through people. Like, I think I know your triggers. I know when you're aggravated. You know when I'm aggravated, and they're for different reasons. But there are certain things about me you didn't know until I was like, I don't like that in a nice way. And the same thing you tell me. And I'm like, oh, okay. So there is getting to know your friend is not enough boundary setting. And that will set you up for either you can't have an honest relationship with them, you can't get deep with them, or resentment because you're not communicating and you're scared to, either because you're scared to or you just don't feel like it. But that all leads to either not being as close as you used to be or not talking at all. Versus if you just slip those things in there real quick.
And a lot of these things are fixable.
Just here go a boundary. So friends who are listening, practice
it. It could be fixable.
Yeah, because just getting to know each other and knowing boundaries that way.
Yeah. And just like let us know, what are some boundaries that you've set and how did it go when you set those boundaries? Like, did your friend, family, whomever, did they accept it and respect it? Or were they just like, nah, you bugging, you wilding out? Let us know. I'm curious to hear it. Yeah.
Also, you can let us know in the comments on YouTube because we're on YouTube now. Season 2 is officially on YouTube and we are growing. Thank y'all so much for subscribing. And please like our YouTube video if you're watching via YouTube. Until next time, friends.